I'm Ranger Erin, and today we're asking the question about how does a fly eat? Houseflies, which are common all over the world, but they're not native to North America, can only eat liquid food. And they eat through their mouth part, which is called a proboscis. And their proboscis is shaped like a long straw with a sponge at the end. So with that mouth part, that proboscis, they can only eat liquid foods. And you might think, well, if they can only eat liquid foods, that means that there's not a whole lot of food for them to eat, because most foods that we find are going to be solid. But that's not true, because houseflies have a special adaptation that allows them to turn some solid foods into liquid foods. And they do this by throwing up on their food. They'll throw up some stomach acid, which is going to melt some of their food, and then they can slurp up the stomach acid slurry like a smoothie with their proboscis. Now this is already pretty gross, but we're going to get a little bit worse. The stomach acid that they throw up onto their food is about as strong as the sodas that you drink or the vinegar that you use when you're cooking or cleaning in your house. So it's not strong enough to hurt you, but it is strong enough to turn something like a sugar cube into a delicious stomach acid sweet smoothie for those flies to slurp up through their proboscis. Flies choose their food by tasting everything. So what they do is they fly around and land on stuff, and they can easily taste everything because they have taste sensors on their feet. So everywhere they land, they're tasting it to see if it's going to be good food for them or to see that that's not something good that they want to eat. That means that you and everybody you know has been tasted at some point by a fly. But they won't find you to be very good food because you're alive and you're moving around, and that's not good food for them. Good food for flies is going to be anything that humans eat. They love all of our foods. They're also going to really like some rotten meat, so a dead animal in the forest. They're going to love some dog feces or any type of poop that they find out there, and rotten foods that we wouldn't find very good at all. They're going to find it delicious. But this means that they could land on some dog poop, make a delicious meal out of that dog poop by throwing up on it, slurping up the dog poop slurry, and then coming over to your picnic and finding your sandwich, landing on your sandwich, throwing up, and they're going to throw up a little bit of that dog poop along with their stomach acid, drink up all of that slurry, but they're going to leave behind some of their stomach acid and some of that poop on your sandwich, which you're then going to eat. And that's not only gross, but that can make you sick. So some of these houseflies can spread diseases. This means we need to be pretty careful about houseflies in or around your home, your garbage, and out on your picnics. So some things that you can do to stay a little bit more safe is to cover up food that you're not eating if you're out at a picnic. Keep it covered until you're ready to eat it. Don't let them land on your food. Go ahead and shoo them away. Cover up any trash nearby or dispose of your dog poop so that there's not that gross stuff that they can land on, eat, and then get it onto your food. And then lastly, if they do land on your food, go ahead and tear off that piece of whatever it is that you were eating. Throw that away, because it might be okay, but it might not, and it might make you sick. Just because the housefly isn't from North America doesn't mean that it's an invasive species, because it doesn't really seem to be hurting any other plants and animals other than spreading diseases to humans. So it's not an invasive species. It actually sometimes helps some of our plants and animals out here. Lots of birds love to eat those flies, eat their larvae, and they are even an important pollinator for some of our plants. So strange plants like pawpaw trees make red flowers that smell a little bit like rotting meat. So that smells really good to those flies, which will go visit those flowers, pollinate them by visiting different flowers and spreading that pollen around. So they're actually doing a little good out here. On your fly hike, keep your eyes out for any houseflies, of course. Don't let them near your food. But you can also keep an eye out for their food sources. Do you see any animal scat, dog scat? Do you see any dead animals that might make a good host for them to lay some eggs on? What about some water sources nearby that they would drink from? You can also maybe notice some of their cousins different types of flies that might be emerging that look like big clouds of tiny little winged insects. Oftentimes we call them gnats. It's kind of a catch-all. For our indoor activity, we're going to recreate what it's like for that fly to eat. I made some red jello, so any type of jello will work. I've also got some white vinegar, which is going to be kind of like that fly's stomach acid. And then in order to throw that stomach acid up on their food, we've got a pipette. But if you don't have a pipette, you can use a turkey baster, or you can very carefully pour out just a little bit of vinegar. So first off, with this clean white napkin, I'm just going to kind of dab at our jello. And you can see that none of that red came up. But when we add a little bit of stomach acid, or pretend stomach acid, it's going to dissolve some of that red jello. And you can see that that red starts to come up, making that delicious jello slurry. And you could try this out with different types of foods too. See what happens when you drop a little bit of vinegar on a piece of bread, or what happens when you drop it on an apple slice. So you can just kind of play around with some different foods using that vinegar to kind of dissolve the food and see what comes up. Thanks for joining me. I'll catch you all next time.